Hello, everyone, and welcome to Funeral Service Insider, the podcast. Conversations worth having with people worth having them with. I'm really excited about our guest today because I'm going to learn a lot along with you all. His name is Matt Linn, and he is with a company called Eternal Fan. Welcome, Matt.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes. Before we even dig into what Eternal Fan is, if you could tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. Myself, little known fact is I've been a licensed funeral director for 30 years and owned and operated funeral homes in Iowa for the past 25. So basically created a new opportunity for fans to engage with things that are very important to them and meaningful through the lens of doing my day-to-day job of the funeral business. So Eternal Fan was created on that platform to let fans, let patrons be at the special places and where memories were made and captured. And we've turned that into a positive as opposed to a whisper or it'd be great if this thing existed. So we're taking the leadership and with our partnership with Wilbert adds more validity inside the funeral business, as well as, like I said, my 30 years of funeral practicing day-to-day stuff. It's not something that we lead into in conversations with Eternal Fan, but whenever they start to learn what it is and how we're doing and what we're looking at doing it by being a vendor, and I have funeral experience, they're like, okay, we get it now. And this isn't a marketing ploy. This is a revenue generator for the venues, this places, the things that matter. And we kind of run in that vendor model the best we can. So we're not seen, we're facilitating for those properties, venues, places to be as authentic and create the relationship. And we like to do the curated experience all the way through.
Families aren't just Googling funeral homes anymore. They're asking ChatGPT. They're asking Gemini. They're asking Siri and Alexa. And whoever those AI tools recommend, that's who gets the call. If your funeral home or cemetery isn't optimized for AI search, you're not just losing rankings. You're becoming invisible at the exact moment a family needs you most. That's why At Need Marketing built the Virtual Visibility Solution, a curated package that combines proven SEO strategies with tactics developed specifically for generative AI search. So when a family asks an AI assistant for help finding funeral service in your area, your name is the one that comes back. Get recommended by AI, be cited by voice assistants, rank at the top of Google, and never wonder if you're being left behind again. Virtual Visibility Solution is built just for funeral homes and cemeteries by a team that understands this profession inside and out. Visit atneedmarketing.com to learn more and book a call with the At Need team today. Nice. And I did notice when I was reading your bio, the progressive mindset, it talked a little about how you had created a catering and event center. Can you tell us a little bit about how you use that to complement what your funeral home was offering at the time?
Well, yes. So funeral home that I currently own got started in 1885, very standard from all the progressions of funeral home from, funerals in the house to funerals, in a funeral home to basically progressing all the way into multi-use event centers is what 2003 purchased. 2008, we were flooded in a catastrophic flood in Cedar Rapids. And then we rebuilt that new look and feel to where we own our own catering company, have our own liquor privileges, so we can work on a funeral and a funeral dinner or a straight celebration of life where people don't really want the funeral, but they want the event place. And we do a lot of custom innovative opportunities when we can that's non-traditional of a funeral home. So our event center staff, very well equipped on, last week we had a gentleman that had a motorcycle and it was a motorcycle there. It was full of libations and fun stuff. It wasn't that stereotypical, sad gloom and doom. He was younger, but is very appropriate. So we can do the funeral aspect all the way through. We marry in our catering, liquor service, and then they kind of work together very well. So also in this evolution, Ross Chapel was the funeral home. The Ava Center was the new event center. And 2 years ago, we gave it its own freestanding location in a town just outside of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, is where we're located. But really, it's a freestanding event center with our catering kitchen. We do a lot of white label catering, white label management. So basically, it's just that same model as, seen, be not heard type of idea. We're there to lead, but we're not the focal point. of any sort of thing, and it's worked out very well. And I don't see an end in sight, especially with cremation rising and people wanting less of the traditional. But I always tell people, I said, hey, we have a parking lot, we have bathrooms, we have staff, we have things. You can have your celebration here, and it's a one-stop shop. It doesn't have to be get catering, get this. You don't have to clean. You just have to, tell us what you want to do, and we facilitate it. So I think on the traditional part, if that even isn't a word anymore, where it's non-cremation, if we're looking at burials and services at our funeral home per se, I would say 75% of those at our locations have a food component to it, a hospitality component, which is which is wonderful. With the trends changing and cremation rising, diversification was the first of that. And I took a little bit of flack for some competitors that you shouldn't be eating at the funeral home. You shouldn't be serving alcohol at the funeral home. Well, I get, but in a controlled environment and a celebratory thing, it's all done very well. So we're able to kind of work, and I now created a co-brand in a Brosh Chapel and the Ava Center, so it's a synonymous term. They don't know which one they're going for, and we do get some ancillary business from other funeral homes that can't offer that next step or that event center, or they're a cremation service and they're only fundamentally doing disposition. So we've picked up the opportunity to get inside and be not just a funeral, but a celebratory celebration event center from, even womb to tomb. We have, our event center has babies, weddings, anniversaries, graduation parties, but I always stick to what I know. If you're happy, I'm going to put you over to the people that understand happy. And those are the event people in the funeral world. No one's ever happy to see us. We're just, they're happy that we're here and we do a good job. That's about, or they're satisfied. They're not pleased. Great day. Mom died. Can't wait to see you, Matt. Said no one, but hey,
Yeah.
I want to have the fun party and put this thing on. That's great. And I like how we've adapted and adopted. And in turn, I see some other regional, I don't know, other funeral homes have started to look at it from a different opportunity and having event centers and doing things. But I I think that we're the only people in Iowa that have their own owned catering company and own liquor license privileges. So it's different than, calling up a caterer and doing it. No, we literally do everything from the very beginning to the end, which is makes us more efficient, but also we can control what the customer's about and what they're looking for, and the takeaway is becoming that one-stop shop.
Well, not only that, but I know as a funeral director, when you're trying to plan an event for a family that's very detailed and you're relying so much on outsourcing significant components of that. The food is a big one. When I worked in Tallahassee, there was a lot of FSU games and things of that nature. So if I happen to have a catering need that coincided with big game events, it would create potential problems in me getting what I needed. Whereas you have the control over those elements. That's got to be a bit more freeing so that your directors can focus on creating that experience without the nagging worries that often are
Right.
associated with outsourcing a lot of those things.
Correct. I think that is pretty much our staff sync up very well on, the celebration part and also the food hospitality part. I mean, they're and vice versa. There's a lot of times that there's events that they're putting on for celebrations of life where there wasn't a funeral home even present. The event center's just taking care of it, and they've worked alongside of enough where they know the look and feel on what they're supposed to do and what not. I mean, wedding is straight up party. Let's have a great time. Celebration of life. Let's do exactly what that is. I mean, it may get a little, but it's not too crazy. It's refined. So we have to just understand our client base, and you're right too. When we can control, when food's supposed to be here for our funeral dinner or our celebration, right? We own it. We do it. It's not like we're dependent upon scheduling of another caterer or a football game. Or I mean, we're geographic close to University of Iowa, and I do laugh, and you know that from being in Tallahassee. People base their weekends, weddings, like, well, the home games this weekend. I'm like, okay, I get it. I'd like to watch it too, but let's just go to do it. And that's when you move those shifts, like, let's not have the wedding this weekend, let's not have the funeral this weekend because of our favorite sport. It lines right into what Eternal Fan is doing. It's catering to that need where life is on pause. No matter, I'm getting married, my grandpa just died. Okay, he loves the Gators. Let's still wait. Let's do a Gator theme thing if we want, but let's all do our usual tradition and follow, Gators play or team play. So I mean, the world stops, but sports are the bond, the glue that binds, where people want to come have a great time. And I learned that stuff. This might be a little bit of a rant here, but we type an obituary, there's always that line, Bob loved fishing, hunting, watching the Cubs, watching the Hawkeyes. And then it's a bunch of like weird words with commas, right? And so if you actually ask them, and this is where I started to evolve in what Eternal Fan could be and what it could do. What does that mean? What do you mean dad loved the Hawkeyes? And all of a sudden, boom, you have a whole sidebar story of every memory that's made and the people that they went with and it goes down to like, went fishing, went to the lake, traveled. I mean, they just warm up and they light up when you start talking about them as opposed to they were born in Paducah, Kentucky. Okay, that was a great day. I mean, we move on to, this whole idea. So we're just literally capturing that little part and it's the eternal fan opportunities are big and vast. The partnership with Wilbert is key. It brings us back inside the funeral component because we want to incorporate funeral homes that are like-minded, even in areas, such as, Gainesville, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Walla Walla, Washington. Makes no difference where they are. We're going to work together with the funeral homes to offer a product and a component that they can actually see some economics at their own level to where it's inclusive. They don't have to go run a program. They can sell opportunities, like say we call them fan spaces. And fan spaces are a IP protected opportunity, which is similar to functioning of what a niche is, but we also build fan memorials, not columbariums. So we have a whole different lingo of non icky terminology, fan spaces, fan memorials, eternal seats, all those fan memories, things that we're working on doing. But the overarching goal is to, work with the funeral homes to give them the opportunity. You're sitting with the consumer, and let's just use the Jacksonville program the best we can. You're sitting with the funeral home there, and they're talking about, mom or dad. They've been season ticket holders of Jaguars. Are you familiar? There's a program here that, and if, you get the drop down and it gets referred and they decide they want to make that transactional purchase, that's great. There's going to be referral. It came from funeral home, web, who taught you about it? And if it's listed that, you know, Josh Smith there at the funeral home recommended it, evidently there's economics going to go back to being part of the process because we come in as Eternal Fan is not that has no connotation of funeral. It doesn't have the funeral service lingo with it because it's still going to be a little bit of an ick factor for partnership selling. We created our own category, the ALX, the Afterlife Experience category, for purposeful reasons. One, they're always selling rights and marks and logos for, let's just do the Gators again, too. They had the official hot dog, the official hotel, the official, whatever. There's no ALX partner. There is nobody doing Afterlife Experience. And inside of that ALX, could be bricks, but those are fundraisers. We're doing revenue and legacy creation and emotional capturing. So we had to create a benchmark so that when they go through their renewals, they understand like, well, who's your ALX partner? Well, there aren't a lot of them. And it can be Smith Funeral Home because that just doesn't sound like something that the outward people want. They may be ran and run by Smith Funeral Home, but they're not going to be the actual partner that's going to quote come in and pay for the rights, the marks, the logos and such that these organizations are used to getting from the Toyotas, the Hondas, the large companies. And but there again too, we never promote Eternal Fan. We only promote a club. Jacksonville has a 904 Ever Club, and they're all like-minded people. When they purchase, they become part of the club, and that is a due paid up membership. Does not have a expiration. We also do some fun activations with them. So we communicate with them. They share stories. It's just basically a fan forum. It's a fandom opportunity that they get to enjoy like-minded people. And we have, definitely a guaranteed one event. Depends on the season, depends on the venue, depends on the sport. But we identify one as like our 904 Ever Club function at Jacksonville. Baseball's got a longer season, might have a couple touch points, but we control the parameters of like when quote placement would happen. It's not just, okay, I had my service at funeral home on Thursday and I'm turning around, we're driving over there now. That it doesn't work that way because we want to build the experience of going to a game, going to a function, going to the event. That's what all the fans were already there for. They've already watched the games, the events. You could take a tour of Lambeau on a day off, and it's hallowed ground, but it's not game day. You're like, whoa, I'm here. But otherwise, it's kind of like I want to be there for the action, for the event, and catch the emotion and part of the pageantry. And why we work with the fan memorials and place them at, I guess, on the campus or visible spots. We want to create that continued experience from, I'm tailgating with my people. I'm going in. I'm going to have a few moments. I don't know. Am I even going to sit there and hopefully at fourth down and 2 and they're down to the 20? Am I going to say a little prayer that says, come on, Dad? He's out there. He's in the fan memorial because he loves this place. Am I going to do it? Probably, maybe. I mean, to each their own, but don't see this as a boo-hoo. I see this as only as positive reflection and memorialization. So I think that the ones that typically already there, I mean, this could be divisible in 1,000 different ways. If you wanted to be at Wilson Cemetery in Indiana, but you love the Jags, you could have a small part there. You could be over at, I mean, you can divide and have your waypoint finders for your kids on a Easter egg hunt to find out where you went, what was impactful to you through generations. So besides sports, lifestyle is our thing. Lifestyle is like the national parks and golf courses and lakes and beaches and rivers and place where people congregate. Like Sturgis is a big lifestyle opportunity that is it's an annual pilgrimage, right? It's just what people do. They did it. Things even like Disney. People have cult followings to what they like to do, and nothing's right or wrong. We're even exploring some opportunities in music with a very popular traveling band that has a lot of steep history. So we might have a curated active memorial program that would go, and then it would have an ending at this particular band's land that's known to them. So you could travel as a memorial experience just one last time. You could end up being part of the band. And I say parts because there's it's divisible. So it's not like we're just lugging around a bunch of things. What we also don't do at Eternal Fan is we're not a big fan of urns. We like to have these living memory pouches, and the pouches can be a little bit of ashes, a little bit of memory, a little bit of things. It's like your gym gym bag. You put all your stuff in it, put your bag in your locker, and away you go. It's not just loose. So not a even being a funeral person, not a huge fan of like clunky urns and stuff. I'd rather have this be high level cherished. We create a custom embroidered, co-branded pouch that gets sent to the people of whatever level they buy, whatever fits in it. We actually go through the whole process and tell you what cannot be put in. And all of our contents through our transactional are put on the blockchain. So the chain has a digital footprint of what we're doing, which is cool if you understand that. I don't. I just know it's going to be there. So it's pretty neat to have that sort of permanency in a digital form. And our conversations with like Premier League teams, Europe, they're more advanced on death. They talk about it direct. Like I almost have to slow it down and say, hey guys, let's just use fan spaces, fan memorials, and they want to know who your chain is, what's your custodial count, all these things. They're further along. They've had 5, 6, 700 more years of death, and they also understand, it's part of it. And so as we move down that line, I'm very cognizant on certain sects that groups the population one do cremation, and we can also do memorialization. So if you get into religious areas where it's just high level memorial, it might be a memory plaque, it might be you know some sort of idea that we can build that does not move into the cremation, doesn't violate. Because I was fortunate enough, I visited as a guest Saudi Arabia in November, and they do no cremation, right? But it was all memorialized, like, you know, stainless steel plaques. Our picture, cooks on an image, lives inside of the football area, racetrack, whatever they're into. But it's still important. It's just levels of what it is for them. And, I don't want to go back and discount the bricks, but we can do bricks, but we don't do bricks because they're inanimate. They become a problem. My grandparents have a brick at the Iowa State Fair, and we go every year. I've shown the kids every year. Usually we get an egg on a stick because what you do at the Iowa State Fair. and you go look at the brick and people are walking all over it and they're doing everything they're doing on it, and then you go. But it's just part of a rite of passage. So it's still part of what it's important. But I just believe that next level is storing things that are high level cherished, including part of, remains, ashes, cremains, whatever we want to call them, in that public forum to where I would continue to visit no matter. I would probably not drive, I don't know, an hour or two to go see my brick. I might have a different reason that I was there. So those are fundraisers, but we're revenue, like I said, revenue generators, legacy collectors, and being very authentic. That's our main push. And our advertising is hallmarky at best. It's talking about why you liked the Gators and what this meant to you and why you liked the Seminoles and what you liked, all those things that are important to you. And you tell us you're wearing your gear, your garb, you're sending pictures, and you're telling us your fandom, and then we just share that back. It's not like we're not like exploiting anything or we're not monetizing on it. We're just having the fans' voices be heard because, as you know from being in the funeral part, there's always that whisper. I'm gonna go to this. You don't have to whisper this. If it's a real program at, University of Miami, it's a real one. It's real, and I'm gonna say I'm going there and I'm putting dad there, and I don't care what it costs. We're doing it, as opposed to, well, I mean, scattering. It's still gonna happen, but I believe that with cremation rising, this is the tip of the spear on where we need to be on looking outside of the traditional because, as a funeral person, the funeral home owner, if I said there's 30 to 40 cremains still left here at the funeral home that people haven't come to pick up, I'm pretty close. And that number's not going down. And I'm always confused on how they don't come back because they don't know what to do with them. If it was high level at the smallest river and there was you went out and you scattered. You did, I didn't, but if you did it and there was some sort of waypoint marker that you could put your name on a thing outside the lake or the river for $500, that meant you were there. You had a footprint, just like your monument at the cemetery. We're just transferring all this funeral stuff and taking it into, I guess, the world and not in a creepy factor.
Well, I think that's clever too, because when you talk about the urn sitting at the funeral home, I think we kind of created that problem as a profession with language. And you talk about omitting some of the funeral terminology in your offering, so it's more of an extension of experience. And I think when you objectify and a person becomes a product, which is an urn, and you start referencing them as the urn or the
Mhm.
product, now it's easier to let them sit at the funeral home in the closet, right? So we've kind of helped feed into the current problem of people with sometimes in their home urns that they don't know what to do with or going to the funeral home to receive one because we've enabled that by distancing the dead from the object. So your use of language is clever. And then additionally, that experience, right? Because you hear about, we have to create experiences now. You can get products anywhere, but it's about creating experiences. And I think you've managed to find a way to marry those two things in such a way that it creates an extension and it helps families remember and relive experiences. And my husband is a Cowboys fan. I did not know anything about football. Still, I'm not that smart about it. But if there's a Cowboys game, we always talk about his mom who died. She was a big fan, right? He'll talk about when they're playing a game, he's like, "Come on, Mom," like she's
There
got
we
some
go.
kind of sway or leverage, in the
Yep.
afterlife to kinda help push toward a win. But, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a very real thing, and you talk about the Jaguars fans or even with Sturgis, it's subcultures of how people identify and their group, it's their people. I think
Mhm.
being able to harness that in such a way that you create basically a continuation of experiences that are inclusive of their person. You don't have that generational shift of, well, this is your great grandfather in a box that you don't know versus we're going to go to the stadium and I'm going to show you where we have the fan space. So,
Yeah.
of your great grandfather and it'll tell more of a story. So I think it's really clever. And I'm sure that some people probably thought when you decided to pursue it that maybe you're, dreaming big. But what pushed you to make it happen? What pushed you past doubt and you said, I'm just going to go with this and make it happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like I said, 10 years, of actively doing it. Partnership with NASCAR started first. I befriended and used a NASCAR current driver as a spokesperson, and we would go from track to track and sponsorship to sponsorship. And Eternal Fan was a thing. And then usually you'd have to talk about it. And you got those squint looks like, I don't know about that one. And then if you did get the ones that understood, you're like, oh, okay. But then we did get a partnership with Richmond Raceway in Richmond, Virginia. We built a custom stainless steel 21-foot piston that sits there. And I mean, it's a waymarker. It doesn't have people's names. It fits. I'm at a racetrack. Here's a piston. Great. I'm at a football stadium. Here's a football. Right. I mean, it's sort of like not that far off. So that was going just well and great. And then we had the COVID. Like I said, we had to slow, pause, stop, sit, wait, because totally wrong optics to monetize on fans when fans aren't in stadiums and fans can't go and fans are dying of COVID or patrons are dying it. You literally just had to sit there and say, you would look like a ghoul, the weirdest person. So you just sit and wait and you wait and then you wait. And then finally there was a interesting, like, it was about a year and a half ago, maybe close to two now. There was a University of Nebraska regent that came into a meeting and said, I believe that we should put columbariums under the memorial stadium when we should sell niches and people should put ashes. I'm like, hello, we're right here. Let's let's circle this up. And then I assembled the team and then I really got, I think, quote, serious, hired consultants, hired Salesforce, hired marketing and pushed and pushed and pushed because if you're saying it, you're a few degrees off. You're going to get, so our concept allows it to happen without the cemetery charter. That's the RIP protects us a lot on that part. But when she said that, I thought, here we got to go because NIL is a problem in college sports and fundraising and money and so passion and fandom is not going away. People still love to go. So I said, this is the time. And in turn, now I believe that there's a definite interest now that from a lot of the colleges that we've befriended with our partnership of Playfly Communications, Learfield Communications. They're the ones that actually sell deals at the athletic level. So we have affiliated with both of them. So we've talked to all the big conferences. We've talked to a lot of the pro teams. Right now we're moving into that inventory of the passionate fans. You did name one. The Cowboys have a very ravenous fan base. There's also Packer people that buy pieces of paper for $500 that they love it. I mean, you talk about fandom at college, on and on and on, traditions of such. So that article was really that eye-opening one because that, and then it went further. There was an ESPN article, and I'm like, we're on the right path now because the categories have all been talked about. Like before, it was crypto and gaming and alcohol and tobacco, but they deemed us in a category of a vice category. I'm like, it's not a vice to die; it's something that happens. You can't because it's like, well, we don't talk about that. Well, people have been going to sporting events for 100 years and they've died. If you serve alcohol, they're like, that's kind of strange. Maybe if people have alcohol, if they're alcoholics are serving alcohol, that's weird, or if you're, have a gambling problem right across the way, you can bet on the game at the game. It's still odd, but they don't have like I don't see how funeral world death got into that. But we don't do that here. I'm like, you don't, but if your life cycle of your fan is 40 years and they die, you just basically said, well, hope the next generation comes back. So we created that circle to where it is an opportunity. No offense. If your husband loves the Cowboys and you don't, and he ends up buying a spot at 18 and you go down there, you'd be like, well, it's what he wanted to do. It's really wanted to be. It's like, this isn't for me. It's for him. Right.
Yeah.
Like good for you, man. So I think that's, the versatility and the options exists when we can pre-plan, we can talk about this in clear minds. But the other beautiful part about Eternal Fan programs is that you can sell into the past. Say if Grandpa he's deceased 15 years ago. Cub fans were great whenever the Cubs were rising and won the World Series. You see people at the cemetery in lawn chairs and radios and flags saying, with their dad thinking, "Wow, this is great." I thought, just imagine if they were outside the walls of Wrigley. Ooh, would that be cool, right? But, it's not for everybody, but it's for the ones that, you know, look at the future. And if I knew that I was going to be at the spots that mattered, and mine are very strange. the Iowa State Fair, the College World Series in Omaha, which is coming up next week, and we go every year.
Hmm.
And the other one's Key West. If I close my eyes, those are where memories were made,
Hmm.
and I'd want kids, family to come visit me at those 3 spots. Eat a eat a corn dog, check out the buttered cow at the fair, catch a game, whatever, and catch a sunset in Key West. I'm good. I'm fine. So when you look at it from a person, and everybody has their thing, you just close your eyes, like that was it. Nothing's weird and off the thing. It's just what it was for you. And as we migrate out and make it be a conversed proper topic as opposed to like whispering, I suppose I have to go to the funeral home and do my planning. Hey, I just bought my fan space at AT&T. I don't want to die, but man, it's gonna be pretty cool when they come see me there. You're gonna be like a little bit different feeling. Or give me that niche over at Wilson Cemetery. I'll go over there. That's where my family goes, and no one will come see me, and it'll be boring, and I'll be hanging out praying that someone comes. There'll be no annual pilgrimages. There'll be no tailgating. There'll be no, you know, boating on the weekend, Memorial Day in the lake, whatever. It was like, well, we're just sort of, I don't know, forgotten, sort of, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how people all process because we spend so much time in the funeral business. We have a whole like, you and I, we have so much that we look at that we don't look at it. And I kind of go the other way. The longer I live, I'm 53. I'm making bad decisions along the way because I'm not going to be 106. My liver's not going to see that much time, So if it's say, let's go do this, I'm like, let's go. I mean, but a lot of people wait and say, well, when I retire, I'll do
Hmm.
this. Well, my dad died at 67. His dad died at 60. I'm not waiting for the what ifs. If I can do it, I'm going to go do it. And if I'm going to go buy something that I don't need because it's a need, not a want, well, then I'm going to go do it, or a want versus a need, whatever. They got to cover your own bases. But that's kind of as it goes down a path. I mean, I'll do anything. Let's go. Sure. Like my friend's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, we're not promised tomorrow. We don't. There's
Yep.
nothing here that says that we're gonna do this in 2 weeks or 5 years. But I think this advanced planning angle of eternal fan and where what it would mean to be a forever patron at Sturgis, or we build all these experiences. I I just see it as kind of never ending. I have a buddy that moved to Costa Rica. We're building what's called an Eternal Horizons, where you could curate, get a boat, get a food and beverage package from one of the people there. And he says he sees them all the time. They come and they go, and then they go out on the cruise, and then they would have a little celebratory, scattering out in the thing. But we want to be that leader, say on TripAdvisor or forgot the other one right now. But anyway, that's Viator. So you basically would get into that, and we would curate the whole experience. Find the boat guy, find this, and it's just a package. It's bought. People don't have to think. They can show up and decide they want to add music, they want to get wine or champagne. It's a high level celebration, and the way they go. I think that's besides placement. It's also what we've done as funeral home people is to create the experience to broker and get the marching band to come in or, and I always laugh too. I feel like I'm rambling, but I feel, there's a little bit of interest from me and a little bit of, I don't know, smirk. This is, oh, I just sold this amazing Tennessee urn. Oh my gosh, how'd you know they like Tennessee? That was awesome. But we're not selling a product. We're selling an experience and an opportunity, and it's not through us. We're doing it for. It's the same if you go to the stadium and you get a hot dog or a beer, you're not buying it from them. There's a third party vendor person that's negotiated those rights. They're selling the hot dogs and the beer, and yeah, they got the logo on their shirt. But there's no way the Dallas Cowboys are selling hot dogs. They're just not. But their brand is producing, that. So part of the experience. We're just that other. That's just our opportunity. So we're no different than the hot dog or the beer. We just come in and run authentic and do it. And it's working. It's working from the standpoint that when we negotiate the buys, the marks and the rights, that we can be as authentic as we can. And it's only continuing to morph and build. And just like conversations that we're having, I sort of kind of knew that eventually we would be talking about all these type of things, but I basically went very organically. The partnership with Wilbert and the friendship with Wilbert has been many, many years in it. We've worked together on I say the pedestrian part, the funeral home stuff, and selling and learning about their memorial monument division, which is awesome. And so then now we're building custom fan memorials or monuments that are way different than the standard. So, those are granite and bronze, and we're building that. So helping their brand do something besides the traditional, helping us do, having the right partner, and then how Wilbert's affiliated with every funeral home at the level, they come in and talk about the partnership with this opportunity they can do it with their own brand. And it's not a funeral home peddling a product to you. It's the funeral home now talking to the consumer. Hey, this is something that we can do because, as you know, from where you were and where you've been around, I mean, things shut down, things are important, but we're just being as inclusive as we can because I've seen that inside of the old funeral home level. If my competitor comes in, like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Shut up, but if Wilbur comes in and says, hey, stuff, I'm like, all right, fine, that sounds great. Even though I know the guy down the street's doing it anyway, but just like, well, it was the manner of the message and who was telling me it wasn't the
Hmm.
message. So I just think that's a good partnership with Wilbert and should be a long opportunity there to, bring some new validity and some new opportunities to, that quiet, we're whispering, don't tell
Hmm.
anybody what we're going to go do with mom and dad. If you want to go do it on your own, then still do it. But it's a real controlled, monetized placement event that is, it's only going to continue to grow in the movement. And even since our press release, was it last week? It's been,
Hmm. I think originally a partnership release was on May 14th.
okay. So we got a couple weeks under our belt. So, I mean,
Hmm.
it's been rather, it's been interesting. I say that from the standpoint, it's been good from being able to talk inside of being a funeral insider, but not having Eternal Fan sound like it's a funeral homey thing or
Hmm.
even a death thing or anything because it's really not. But when you peel apart the layers of the onion and you see that the guy at the center is a funeral background, they're like, okay, this I can get behind this as opposed to somebody
Hmm.
looking to make a buck and somebody looking to exploit something. I mean, I believe it. Our staff believes it. Our whole team wholeheartedly that this is, when done right, is let's say, a grief solution. It certainly doesn't hurt the grieving process, knowing the fact that I am at where I want to be and I'm content and the world goes on. So, you know, other companies said the industry have done a great job. Eternova, Parting Stone. I mean, they've created new opportunities that people quote live on, but that is literally specific to like I'm holding the stone, I'm wearing the thing, I'm not out and doing the places. So we're a place thing, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's not contingent upon the remains. I think that's a differentiator too, right? So you can have your fan space, your memorial space, and it can have no actual physical remains if that's the
Right.
case. So I think that's a big differentiator too. And I did look at your Richmond, Virginia monument, the giant piston, which I will
Mhm.
include a link to the show notes. It's really quite interesting. It has 125 spaces and 1,500 memory. Or what verbiage did you use? The fan spaces, and then what were the?
Yes, we have, yeah, inside the faces, there's 125 individual fan spaces that the
Mhm.
image comes off, and then inside there's a large drum cavity, and those are called shared fan spaces. And the shared would be still the same idea. There's small, medium, and large in our velvet bags, and
Mhm.
they're dropped in and placed, and it's you're part of that experience. But you can get private or you can get shared. It's just similar, shifting the words to there's terms inside the funeral cemetery world of, you know, niche or ossuary. I choose to
Mhm.
use shared fan space because it sounds a lot better
It
to me.
reminds me of a time capsule, to be
Time
honest. You know
capsule.
what I mean? When you think about gathering special things and then putting them somewhere, granted, you're not gonna necessarily go back in and retrieve them, but the idea of it, of capturing things that are meaningful and putting them in there, that's kind of what it made me think of, actually.
We did a NASCAR driver, or I'm sorry, a NASCAR artist. He passed away a few years ago. His name was Sam Bass, and Sam painted like drivers and scenes, and this is kind of like old school stuff where they didn't have computers and AI. People had to like do things, with their hands. And he passed away, and Richmond was one of his favorite spots. So we dedicated a fan space for him, and we had his family bring in, like, it was, I think, wife and son and some other people, and we placed, like, some art brushes and some of his personal things inside the fan space. So, you're right, it doesn't have to be just it can be time capsule-y sort of idea of what fits and what was important to me, if it was my hat or if it was a picture of me or if it was a, checkered flag or as a empty beer stein. Because, in terms and conditions allow us to put things, but things cannot be explosive, corrosive, biodegradable, hazardous to human, perishable. And no offense, hats, letters, pictures, ashes, cremains are none of those. I mean,
Mhm.
I guess if you ate a hat, that'd be a weird thing anyway. But I mean, it's the idea that things are not the scary part of the world. And if they don't meet the terms and conditions and we place everything, then they don't go in. So we are the guardians of what goes in. And then, like I said, it backs itself up on our transaction of the chain. So I put in this, this, and this, and it's got a digital footprint. So kind of working on all the digital aspects. One that we'll definitely have is the fan story needs to be heard. And you said it too with your husband talking about his mom, right? So let's
Mhm.
just say that mom has her space at AT&T and T, and this is all happening, and there's a little small QR code, right? And the QR code is there, and it could port onto, a site either on cowboysforever.com or it would live. So the digital footprint goes on. So I'm having a bad day. I could go somewhere. I could see, mom's story. I can actually edit and update the story as I so choose. So the memories never go away. It's so you control who's seeing those as opposed to going to broshchapel.com and checking out the obituary that was written in the paper. But maybe I want to put in a video. Maybe I want to be stuff. And I
Mhm.
think that's only gonna continue to improve. I've got 5 kids, the oldest is 19, and they're so digitally, advanced, and when they tell me how to do stuff on my phone, I'm like, "Okay," I laugh, but then the digital stuff's not going away, so we can have physical placement and then a digital component, which actually will appeal to, you know, all of those feelings that would happen no matter what.
And no matter where you are. When you talk about the stadium even, so even if I can't go, I'm pretty sure I can catch a televised game and I'll get to see it. And when I look at it on TV even, you're reminded that your person has a little spot there. And I looked at the one that you all are working on for the Jaguars, and what's nice about it too is similar to the piston design for the racetrack is it doesn't look like gloom and doom, like traditional columbarium niches or anything. You've got the Jaguars logo there. It's got the football on it. It looks really impressive. And I was curious because I know it's being designed for the future stadium. It did say it moves with the team, which I thought was a good fact to know. So if people do have a purchase there and the team moves, potentially the whole unit would move with the team. But
Mhm.
can people pre-purchase for the Jaguar spaces that are under construction?
100%. We activated almost a year to the date with Jacksonville, and in this time was a wonderful courtship of like how we're going to because it is a first to market sort of thing. And the Jags are building a new stadium. It'll open in 2028. And then out front of their own current stature stadium, they do have things called touchdowns, a large Jaguar focal point. That's been removed. The whole campus is getting torn up. The whole campus is getting rebuilt. So we have nowhere to put the monument right now, even if it was there.
Mm.
But yes. So the idea now is to pre-sell, buy, and then we're ramping up to the unveiling of 2028 to where fans in the past, current fans, fans in the future I kinda liken it to there's a sporting phrase, it's a PSL, preferred seat license. You're gonna get a seat at the new stadium. This is sort of in that lens that Jacksonville has been around for 30 years. They're a new team. They're building history. The
Mhm.
Cowboys have history. So
Mhm.
they're building this new stadium to be a presence to where now in 70 years from now, they'll look back and think, "Man, we've had 100 years of history," right? But the Cowboys are like, "We got 150. What are you gonna do about it?" Right? So, I mean, they're building history with their stadium. But yeah, pre-sales are key. I liken it very similar to, you know, columbarium. You're gonna buy something at the cemetery. I don't need it. And if you do need it, well, you gotta hold off until it gets built anyway. So we're not gonna just rush over there and drop one down just because. But and pre-sales are happening, and that's why I'm very motivated and excited to get this inside of the funeral homes that are servicing the area because their economics will only improve. We'll have a function. One of the things that I'd like to do, and that's been discussed a lot this fall, as opposed to a fan event, I would love to have a funeral home cemetery group come over during either a game or we have a learned event inside of the Jaguars event center that we have access to by being a partner and just talk about the program, talk about what
Mhm.
it can do, talk about this, give tours and show stuff so the funeral home people, cemetery people can go back and say, cool, this is an opportunity here that this is where it'll live and it'll breathe. But we're not doing licensing because we're not doing urns. So you're gonna just have to like cemetery people sell cemetery opportunities, funeral home people, we want to create even a 904 ever celebration package that can be sold and monetized at the funeral home level. And we create the menu and give it to the funeral homes and put your pricing on it. But these are the things that we think it should have. It should have this, this, and this. And I believe funeral directors are enough of a to read a stuff and provide service. But if it's handed to them, they just have to check the box and get it done. The rest of it will take over on just what the uplifting celebration event is like. It would be if it was all if it was not cremation, I wouldn't trust anybody, but this is celebratory and fun and those funeral homes then too can sell at their own level. They can sell, expenses, they can sell, pre-needs into this whole thing. So it's not just a placement deal. It's a real funeral home advanced, cemetery advanced. I mean, for the ones that are going to do it, they can still buy a piece of the cemetery. They can still do that. So the
Mhm.
cemetery is not losing money, but it's also an
Yeah, it's
opportunity
not
to
competing, it's complementing, more or less.
exactly. And that's
Yeah.
why I was all these years of waiting. I knew I didn't ever want that formula to come out and say it was a combative sort of thing. Like, well, we're already doing that. I'm like, well, no, you're not. And we're not doing licensing, so we don't have to do with that part. So yeah, it's all I wanted a very inclusive program for being inside the funeral business. And if it was presented to me, how would I want it to be presented? Is this going to be something I'd promote? And if somebody walked in the door with this thing right now for the University of Iowa, I'd be slapping that down in front of everybody's page and say, here you go. And if they buy, there's some economics. If they come back and I get a chance to run it you darn right, I'm going to be excited to do that because otherwise it was like, well, we did a Hawkeye funeral today. They played the fight song. Yay. It's just like, let's do something a little bit better that's, you know, impactful and whatever. So yeah,
And it goes beyond a day, and I think that's the thing too. You can host an incredible celebration of life that's themed, and it will be great, but then that day will end, right? And then people may or may not think back to it, but they're gonna remember games and things like that, and so you're gonna have that continuous triggering of those positive experiences that even the most incredible celebration of life probably can't provide. And I think what's important to recognize too is that because you have that collaborative energy, I think with staffing concerns in some funeral homes, they're gonna be like, oh, this sounds like more work. And I think that the idea of you being able to come in and, provide the resources they need to be successful with like its offering are
hmm
really something to consider because it's oftentimes, people, suppliers will be like, here, sell my stuff. And you know what I mean? It's like, here you
Oh,
go,
I know.
here's a catalog, and then they may or may not, or you may buy something really cool you saw at convention, and then you get back with it, and you have no idea, like, how you're gonna use it, and I see this a lot with an airbrush. So this idea is more like, I'm gonna work with you to make this successful, and it's supplementary serving that family in a capacity that the funeral
And
profession.
the funeral home at the pedestrian level must produce a product or an experience that goes into eternal fan, right? They're producing ready-made products, and I hate to say it, but if they're producing something that go in a living memory pouch and it was in ash form, only a funeral home is producing that.
Mhm,
So they're part of the network, whether they like it or not, or whether they even know it's happening. But if they're if they're brought into it, and I believe in every major metropolitan college I mean, there are places, funeral homes that I guarantee those probably already supporters, they're season ticket holders, suite ticket holders. There's something and if you appeal to the funeral home guy in Philadelphia that loves the Eagles, they got the Eagle flag flying at the funeral home on a Sunday. This
mhm.
is just an extension of what they already like. It's very simple for them to come in and do without having to quote create a company without having to worry about all the logistics. They run their business on a day-to-day level, and it's just an enhancement. It's a nice wrinkle, and they can cast that out to their consumers because we bought the rights, to the Jacksonville Jaguars and the other places too. So if they become, they can say we're an official something something of,
Mhm.
that's something that they can do that with, you know, pumping their chest out with worrying about like, well, here come the lawyers. Like
Mhm.
we can
Yeah.
actually say it that we're officially a partner of it. And,
Mhm. It gives an
our
added layer of credibility for sure.
yes. And the consumer, I think, buys that. So you had a really good point, and I've always likened that once a week, twice a week, I still get the stuff that comes in from a really cool product. And remember, you go to the old rest areas along the interstates, and you see the kiosk, and you pull out the biggest ball of yarn, and this one over here is like the Gator Farm. You're like, I don't have time to talk to you about 89 cool ideas, right? You just don't, and you're like, then you feel like you've lost your 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 scope because if you go too far down a path and you say, "Well, you should consider this one," like, I would never do that. That is the goofiest thing. And now you feel like you're like combating. So if you put all these
Mhm.
things somewhere they can find and they can peruse around the internet in their underwear at midnight, they can,
Mhm.
so but you're not forcing it and they come in, they tell you, "Hey, I wanna do this thing. I saw this on your site." "Oh, yeah, that's cool." And then all of a sudden the onboarding happens through what we need to be doing, and they produce the product and the referral basis, and they're on the next family. They're
Mhm.
not worried about, "Wonder how that family a month and a half ago is doing with that eternal fan thing over at Florida State. How's that
Yeah.
going? Hmm." They're not, and they're only interested, like, when it's time for them to, quote, "activate" and be a part of that placement day,
Mhm.
and as we know from funeral people, there's gonna be nothing more important for me to work with a family or consumer or patron, supporter, whatever it is, and we've done it before, but, I mean, we're en masse, like, say, we're dedicating your family's fan space, and the thing is, it's family-based, so if you wanted to have it's not just one, like a cemetery niche has one. If you wanted to buy the Smith family fan space, you put whatever you want. There's not a set rule that says only one bag. It's whatever fits in there. So you could have multiple people
That's
doing
cool.
something which is different. But there's nothing more important for me, I think, professional wise, is to be there and take this living memory pouch with stuff that's very sought after and we're doing the placement and
Mhm.
they're crying and they're happy at the same time, like, "Oh my god, this is so great," and they're crying, and then, as funeral people, we're very versed on that whole thing. I could sit and watch you having your world's worst day, and I'm thinking like, I would like a piece of pizza right now. Or you're thinking about something totally different because we're conditioned to be that, and that's why using the industry network that exists of either Wilbert or funeral homes or cemeterians or people that would do it, they get it. They already
Mhm.
know what it's like to watch somebody come in and do and be emotional, and we're not turning this over to a sales force or a service force of sports that,
Yeah.
they're gonna sense like you're just tense, like, "Oh god, this is like, ugh." That's gonna be fun to watch that whole action over and over again. And
Mhm.
selfishly, there's places that I wanna go see. I mean, I wanna be at the main activations at, you know, Notre Dame, AT&T. I wanna see that.
Well,
I'm not gonna
yeah.
lie. I wanna be at Sturgis during a rally, and it's just going nuts, and I'm like, "This is pretty cool." And then I'm gonna leave
Mhm.
and go back to boring Iowa, and I'm fine, So that's it's kind of a lot of motivation for me, but you know, basically Eternal Fan was created on, I believe people should have an opportunity to be where they want to be and placement.
Mhm.
And you're right. It's a big hill to climb. I think we've about made it to the top of the hill. I think now we can kind of enjoy and, the sports world and lifestyle world will catch on.
Mhm.
It's like we first cracked it and, you come in the case we did with the Jacksonville, they were, like I said, an extremely great partner. You come in very soft and you just kind of open the door and you get in the room and you don't make a lot of noise and you take a year and you will kind of work on the memorial and you kind of just whisper and then all of a sudden you get a press release and they're like, how's this going to go? I thought, and so what was really cool about it and all of the publications and all the things that we put out there, there's been no negativity in social media, which is bizarre, right? Because everybody's got an opinion of everything. But the only opinions people had were like, "Is that real?" And they would say, "That's real." Cool. And that was it. But if you decided you wanted to change a uniform color, everybody's got opinions. This one would
Mm-hmm.
be like fandom 101. I'm good. That makes sense. I could see that. Not for me. Didn't say you had to do it. It's an opportunity that exists. So if we're appealing to a 1 to 5% fan base that would purchase, our inventory, we can't come over and take over a stadium. We can have select. So you get into premium numbers, premium location, you're going to have premium pricing. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
the Jacksonville will be the least expensive of everything in the NFL because we literally put out a thing. It's cheaper than a regular niche at a cemetery in Jacksonville. I know that. So why would you not want to just get something that mattered as opposed to get the whatever was? So if it were 59,000, people are like, oh, geez. Now,
Yeah.
AT&T Stadium, that fan base might be a little bit different.
But there's still a segment, right? It's just like anything else. And people are, especially in funeral service, oh, no one's going to pay for that, right? Who's going to pay for that? But there is a segment of people that will. And when you dismiss something and say, oh, nobody's going to pay, and then you don't offer it, then those people will find it somewhere else. They'll find it eventually. And now I wanted to ask, do you offer like direct to consumer sales and things like that? So if a family sees something and they're interested, but none of the funeral homes in their area are partner working with you, can they reach out to you directly?
Well, they can go directly so right now, the Jacksonville one is a full marketplace. It's a 904 Ever Club,
Mm.
Go Eternal fan. That's available all day long. That's where we want to refer them to push them into the funnel to be, Eternal fan holds no weight. And I would say the idea is if I want a Big Mac, I'm going to McDonald's. I don't want to get the guy in the corner who's got the Whopper, the Big Mac, and the Culver sandwich because I lost my experience. I'm going to kick them right back to the authentic Jaguars.com. And then inside of that too, we've offered now payment options to where first we decide on options of pricing. One was
Mm-hmm.
like 5904, 2904, 904. And the 904 is those are like little keepsakes, but they're still there. And that seems affordable. Under $1,000 doesn't seem that bad. But we've learned too, if I was going to prepay for something, just like my cemetery stuff or my own funeral home things or my car or my house, I'm making payments. So
Mm-hmm.
we take payments in our payment processor and you don't get occupied until it's paid. So
Yeah.
it's making it divisible because, we're all probably in some sort of financial payment plan of everything along the way.
It's familiar, basically. It's like a familiar expectation, like
Yes.
any other large purchase. And I feel like that makes it attainable potentially too. So it's
Mhm.
really quite clever. So I will be sharing links in the show notes for the 904 Forever that was mentioned, the link to show you all the Raceway Eternal fan spaces that are there that you all designed, and then I'll link the press release because it does have a picture of the soon-to-be created Jaguar Memorial, or not Memorial, fan space, excuse me, the Eternal fan space.
Oh, I call
But,
I call it the 904 Ever Fan Memorial.
okay.
Yeah, and then inside of the fan memorial are fan spaces.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
they live
Memorial
in a
houses and
memorial.
spaces.
Yeah, they live in just like a niche lives in a columbarium, a fan space lives in a memorial.
Okay.
And so
So
our
I will have that information available to listeners. It will be in the show notes. You'll probably see a little something in Funeral Service Insider as well in the written version about this. But I want to thank Matt for the time. I feel like you're cresting a wave right now. You're about to pretty much take off, I think, in visibility and opportunities. I really appreciate you taking the time to help educate, definitely me, and I'm sure a few of the other funeral service practitioners that are listening. Thank you very much for your time. And we look forward to seeing your company continue to grow.